Hermione's Song, Chapter 13. Stonehenge. The Portkey ride to Stonehenge had been unusually turbulent, which resulted in Tonks and the Doctor landing flat on their backs when it deposited them on a hill near the famous monument. Tonks turned her head to look at the Doctor through the tall brown grass to see if he was all right. He met her eyes and squealed, "That was fantastic!" The Doctor stood up and brushed loose grass off his jacket, smiling from ear to ear. Once his outfit was clean, he offered Tonks his hand to help her up. "That was the most entertaining ride I have ever been on, and that's saying something. I've been to just about all the major amusement parks ever created," he told her. He looked longingly at the Portkey they had just used. "Let's do it again," he suggested eagerly, ready to enjoy another thrill ride. Tonks shook her head in wonder. She might have been an adrenaline junkie, but even she had no desire to try that Portkey again so soon. Lucky for her, she had the perfect excuse not to.
"Doctor, the students will be arriving in less than 5 minutes, and we have to make sure the perimeter is secure,"
she reminded him. "Right, students. Sorry," the Doctor apologized sheepishly. He pulled out his sonic screwdriver and scanned the surroundings, turning in a slow circle. He flicked his wrist, and the top part of the screwdriver slid out further to give him a better view of the readings. "Well, let's see. Other than us, the only other person within a 2-kilometer radius is standing on the other side of that stone there," he said, pointing with the screwdriver to one of the upright stones a few meters from them. Tonks pulled out her wand and had it at the ready while she yelled out,
"Hello, we're the group from Hogwarts."
A timid-looking wizard wearing a dusty brown robe poked his head out from behind the massive gray stone.
How do I know you're telling the truth?"
he demanded before pulling his head back behind cover. Tonks faced the Doctor, rolled her eyes, and changed her face to look like a chicken, indicating what she thought about the cowardly man.
"Professor Dumbledore said the password was chocolate frogs,"
she shouted to the stone after she turned her face back into one she normally wore. The man poked his head out again, and then braved showing the rest of his body.
"Well, you have the right password, so I guess you probably are from the school," he acknowledged.
Their tour guide looked around and frowned.
"However, if you really are from Hogwarts, where are all the students?"
he asked suspiciously. As if on cue, the first batch of students was dropped onto the hill near the Portkey. The first 5 to arrive were Hermione, Harry, Ron, Neville, and Dean Thomas. The rest of the students arrived in intervals until all 40 of the 6th-year students were present. The Slytherins were the last to arrive. Tonks herded the students to the outer ring of stones to begin the lesson. Their tour guide smiled weakly at the students and began his lecture.
"Hello, students. My name is Professor Historia, and I am one of the researchers for magical archaeology at the British Royal Museum," he informed the class. At the mention of the word archaeology, the Doctor let out a snort of laughter and pointed at the archaeologist mockingly. Tonks raised her eyebrow, silently questioning him. The Doctor dropped his hand and leaned over to her, whispering behind his other hand. "Sorry about that. Bad habit of mine," he admitted. While the tour guide continued with his lecture, the Doctor wandered off to the other side of Stonehenge. Harry noticed the Doctor leaving and nudged Ron and Hermione, who both nodded in acknowledgement. The 3 of them snuck away from the group to follow the Doctor. They instinctively knew that whatever he was up to would be far more interesting than a history lecture. Hermione watched as the Doctor waved his wand at the nearest stone. She was able to hear a high-pitched whine coming from the gold and silver cylinder in his hand. When he was done, he tucked away his wand and pulled out a red rubber ball from an interior pocket of his jacket. He tossed the ball towards the stone and caught it when it bounced back to him. As soon as he caught the ball, the Doctor closed his eyes like he was doing calculations in his head.
"What are you doing?"
she asked him curiously. The Doctor's eyes snapped open when he realized he wasn't alone. "I'm trying to figure out if these are the same stones that were here the last time I visited Stonehenge," he replied. Ron looked at the Doctor with a mixture of concern and scorn on his face.
"He's worse than Luna," he muttered to Harry.
Harry barely succeeded in stifling a laugh. Ron put his hand on the stone the Doctor had been examining.
"I'm pretty sure these have been here for a very long time. That is, unless some aliens came in and swapped them out recently," he joked, making fun of his girlfriend, Luna.
The Doctor stood still in shock and then whipped out his sonic screwdriver again. "I never thought of that. Thanks, Ron," he told the Ginger Gryffindor. He pointed the screwdriver at the ground and took more readings. Nope, nothing more than the odd mat trans residue from the occasional cruise ship excursion.
Nothing capable of moving these stones, he confirmed. Oh, and these aren't really stones. They're actually crystalline multi-waveform energy resonators and amplifiers, he mentioned. Huh? Ron blurted, having no idea what the doctor was talking about. Before Ron could continue, Hermione held up her hand for him to stop. She stepped closer to the doctor while he ran his hand over the stone.
Doctor, you said you weren't certain these were the same stones as when you were last here,
she paraphrased, deciding to break down what the doctor was saying into individual concepts.
What makes you think they could be different?
She inquired.
I'm not sure I can explain it in a way that would make sense to you, the doctor replied.
Try me,
Hermione said tersely. She wasn't used to having her intelligence questioned. The doctor laid his hand on Hermione's shoulder. It's not that I don't think you're bright enough, he told her, reading her expression correctly. I know you're bright. Brilliant, actually. But the problem lies in the English language. It doesn't have the words necessary to convey some of the concepts, he explained. Hermione gave the doctor a cold stare, but took no action to remove the doctor's hand. He realized how close he was standing to her, and took a self-conscious step back, letting his hand drop to his side. Have you ever heard of something called the Pandorica? He asked the three students. Ron and Hermione raised their hands while Harry shrugged his shoulders. Dursleys really kept you isolated, didn't they? Ron remarked. I was locked in that cupboard under the stairs for most of the time before I made it to Hogwarts. I've never even heard of half the things most people talk about. Muggle or wizard, Harry admitted. The doctor had never met the Dursleys, but he promised himself if he ever did, he would give them a piece of his mind. Several alien species could testify that the fury of the oncoming storm was not something you ever wanted to be on the receiving end of. Not wanting to lose his temper, the doctor went back to their original topic. All right, Hermione or Ron, tell me what you know, he ordered. Hermione took in a deep breath and squared her shoulders. Something Ron and Harry knew meant she was switching into bookworm mode.
According to most of the books I have read, the Pandorica is a myth, she told the doctor.
Myth? Ron blurted. It is not. My aunt said she actually saw it in the museum once. Of course, when she looked back, there was nothing there, he replied. She would have thought it was just a hallucination, except for how detailed the image was, right down to the sign saying not to touch it, he said, defending his aunt. Hermione, you told me what the books say, but what do you think? The doctor pressed. Hermione looked at the doctor skeptically, but then became more thoughtful as she realized the doctor wouldn't be asking about the Pandorica for no reason.
It's hard to believe in something that people, including museum curators, swear to have seen, but fails to provide any real evidence of its existence, including photos, she told him.
The doctor furrowed his brows in thought. He smacked his forehead and spun around on his heel.
Of course! Why didn't I figure that out earlier? It's so obvious! He exclaimed.
Doctor, not everybody thinks like you,
Hermione reminded him.
Thank God,
Ron muttered. Hermione gave Ron a dirty look and then went back to speaking with the doctor.
What is so obvious?
She questioned. The doctor hopped once in excitement and did a little dance.
The Pandorica is both here and not here at the same time. It's the link between two universes and exists in a state of quantum
superposition, he told her, barely able to contain himself. Ron looked at Harry, who just shrugged, not following the doctor's explanation either.
Oh, you mean like Schrodinger's cat,
Hermione interjected. The doctor frowned at Hermione.
No, they're absolutely nothing alike. Bob is really quite a nice being once you get to know him, and the Pandorica...
He shuddered at the last bit, not able to express his dislike for the prison built just for him. Hermione stood with her hands on her hips, clearly annoyed with him. You meant they both exist in a state of quantum superposition, didn't you? He asked for clarification. Hermione nodded once.
Yes, well, in that regards, I guess they are similar, he admitted.
The doctor was distracted from further analysis by a shadow passing over Stonehenge, while the temperature dropped several degrees. He reached into his dimensionally transcendental pocket and pulled out a pair of binoculars. Hermione noticed that the binoculars had the same wings coming out of a globe symbol as her father's pair did. The doctor looked up at the strange cloud that was gathering above them. He dialed up the strength until he could make out individual creatures within the cloud. This is very not good, he said to no one in particular. He held his hand with the binoculars behind him, offering someone else the chance to use them. Harry took the binoculars and tried to adjust them for his poor vision. While he did that, a layer of frost started to form on the grass as the temperature dropped even further.
No!
Harry swore when he was finally able to see what the cloud really was.
What do you see, Harry?
Ron asked.
Not sure he wanted to know the answer.
Harry put down the binoculars and took out his wand.
Dementors! He shouted. Hundreds, maybe thousands of them, he added.
Harry turned towards where the rest of the class was still being bored to tears. Harry ran towards them, yelling,
Tonks! It's a trap! Dementors!
What did he say? The doctor asked in surprise. Hermione took the binoculars from Ron and looked into the cloud.
He said Dementors, Doctor,
she replied while confirming what Harry saw.
How would he know what a Dementor is?
The doctor demanded. Hermione glared at the doctor.
They've been tormenting him ever since our 3rd year at school,
she told him. The doctor ran his hand through his hair and bit his lip as he tried to think.
This is even worse than I thought. I never dreamed they would make it to Earth, he muttered.
Tonks heard Harry's yell and grabbed the students nearest to the portkey. She didn't have time to wonder why the Slytherins were all standing so close to their only way out of there.
Grab hold and tell Professor Dumbledore what is happening,
she ordered Draco as she shoved him towards the sign. Tonks also missed the smile of satisfaction on Draco's face as he reached for the portkey. Draco's smile faltered when nothing happened after he touched the sign. He slammed his hand on the sign and still nothing happened.
Why isn't this working? It's supposed to be working! He yelled with a mixture of fear and anger.
The doctor stepped out from the stone circle and took another reading with his sonic screwdriver. He looked over his shoulder at Hermione, who was leaning against one of the stones, concern evident in her eyes. He tried to smile comfortingly at her. Nothing to worry about. The last time I was here, I was facing even worse odds, he told her. Of course, I did have a legion of Roman soldiers with me at that time, he added absently.